For decades, American drivers have trusted Japanese cars for their reliability, affordability, and long-lasting value. From the moment they first arrived on U.S. shores in the 1970s and 80s, Japanese vehicles quickly earned a reputation for being dependable, economical, and easy to maintain. They became the go-to choice for families, students, and commuters alike, offering peace of mind in a world where car trouble was once a common headache. When you need a car that just works, one that starts every time, sips fuel, and holds its value for years, you often end up with a Honda, Toyota, or Subaru. These brands became synonymous with practicality and trust, their logos a familiar sight in driveways and parking lots across America. Even in the used car market, Japanese models were prized for their longevity and low cost of ownership. These cars became family staples, shuttling kids to soccer practice, enduring long commutes, and asking for little more than an oil change or a new set of tires. For many Americans, their first car was a hand-me-down Civic or Corolla, a reliable companion through high school, college, and beyond. The bond between American families and their Japanese cars grew stronger with every mile. Japanese automakers earned this loyalty through years of consistent performance and innovation, focusing on efficiency, quality, and cutting-edge technology. Their factories became models of precision and productivity, and their engineers set new standards for what a car could be: safe, efficient, and built to last. To meet soaring demand, Japanese companies invested billions in the U.S., building massive factories and hiring American workers. These plants didn't just assemble cars, they became pillars of local economies, providing stable jobs and revitalizing entire communities. By 2025, companies like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan were woven into the very fabric of the American economy. Their presence was felt from coast to coast, not just in showrooms but in the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of American families. But even the most stable systems can be upended by a single powerful tool of economic policy. In a world of global trade, a shift in government strategy can send shockwaves through entire industries, changing the rules overnight. In 2025, that tool, tariffs, hit with the force of a sledgehammer, threatening to disrupt decades of partnership and progress. Suddenly, the future of Japanese cars in America was uncertain. The American-Japanese automotive partnership, once a symbol of mutual benefit and trust, was about to face its toughest test yet, a challenge that would determine the future of both industries for years to come. Let's break down tariffs. At their core, they're simply taxes placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad. When a product crosses the border, the government can slap on a fee, making it more expensive before it even hits store shelves. Think of it as a cover charge for products entering the U.S., whether it's cars, TVs, or even something as simple as avocados. If it's made elsewhere and shipped here, there's a good chance a tariff is involved. The main goal? To make foreign goods more expensive, so American-made products look like a better deal. It's a way to nudge shoppers toward buying local, supporting U.S. businesses and workers. In early 2025, the Trump administration doubled down on tariffs, rolling out new policies designed to boost U.S. manufacturing and protect American jobs. The message was clear: put America first, especially when it comes to big industries like autos. The logic behind these tariffs is straightforward. By making it more expensive for Japanese, Mexican, and Canadian companies to sell cars in the U.S., the hope is that American automakers will have a better shot at thriving in their own backyard. But tariffs are a blunt tool. They don't just hit foreign companies, they can shake up entire industries, causing uncertainty for businesses both at home and abroad. The extra cost from tariffs is almost always passed on to you, the consumer, in the form of higher prices. Suddenly that new car or TV costs a lot more than it did last year. So, while the intent is to protect American jobs and industries, the reality is that everyone ends up paying more. Families, workers, and businesses alike. It's a bit like trying to swat a fly with a sledgehammer. You might get the fly, but you risk wrecking the whole kitchen in the process. The impact can be much bigger than intended. Tariffs ripple through the economy, affecting everything from supply chains to jobs, and often leading to consequences that no one saw coming. And in 2025, those ripples became tidal waves, shaking up the auto industry, the stock market, and the lives of millions of Americans in ways that are still being felt today. Japanese automakers entered 2025 with optimism, hoping for friendlier policies and a stable business environment. After years of navigating trade tensions and adapting to shifting regulations, they believed the worst was behind them. Executives in Tokyo and Nagoya spoke of new investments, innovative models, and a renewed focus on the American market, which had long been their most lucrative destination. That hope vanished almost overnight when the U.S. government slapped a sweeping 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, two countries that serve as critical links in the Japanese automakers' North American supply chain. Suddenly, the seamless flow of parts and vehicles across borders was thrown into chaos, threatening the very foundation of their operations. The shock didn't stop there. Within weeks, the tariff expanded to cover nearly all imported vehicles and auto parts, including those shipped directly from Japan. The new rules applied to everything from engines and transmissions to finished cars, catching the industry off guard and leaving little time to adapt. The impact was immediate and dramatic. Suddenly, a $30,000 imported car cost $7,500 more before it even reached the dealership floor. For consumers, this meant sticker shock. For automakers, it meant a looming crisis. Automakers faced a brutal choice: absorb the loss and risk financial ruin, or pass the cost to consumers and watch sales plummet. Boardrooms filled with tense discussions as executives weighed layoffs, plant closures, and the possibility of abandoning the U.S. market altogether. Decades of investment in North American factories and just-in-time supply chains were upended overnight. Production lines slowed or stopped and warehouses filled with unsellable inventory. The new tariffs didn't just disrupt business, they shattered the entire model Japanese automakers had built for the U.S. market, a model based on efficiency, reliability, and cross-border cooperation. Every forecast and long-term plan was suddenly obsolete. Years of careful strategy and market analysis were rendered useless in a matter of days. The industry was thrown into crisis mode. Emergency meetings became the norm as leaders scrambled to understand the new reality and devise a survival plan. The impact was immediate and severe. Dealerships closed, stock prices tumbled, and uncertainty rippled through the entire sector. Japanese automakers were forced to rethink everything from pricing to production, logistics, and even their long-term presence in North America. Teams worked around the clock, searching for solutions in a landscape that had changed overnight. The U.S. market, once their crown jewel and a symbol of global success, had become a minefield of risk and unpredictability. The shockwaves were just beginning, and the world was watching to see how Japanese automakers and the entire industry would respond to this unprecedented challenge. The financial fallout was swift and devastating. Analysts projected over $19 billion in losses for Japan's top car makers in a single year. Toyota alone faced up to $10.7 billion in potential losses, with $1.2 billion gone in just 2 months. Honda and Nissan each braced for $3 billion in hits, while Subaru predicted $2.5 billion in losses. Some companies stopped issuing financial forecasts altogether. They were flying blind. Every dollar lost to tariffs meant less investment in new technology, fewer raises, and stalled factory plans. The dream of American market dominance had turned into a financial nightmare. Drastic, painful decisions were now unavoidable. The bonfire was fueled by the cash reserves and future plans of Japan's auto giants. Automakers responded quickly to the new reality. Honda postponed an $11 billion Canadian investment meant to create a North American EV hub. Thousands of jobs and a bold future plan were put on ice. The reason was simple: why invest billions when tariffs were dismantling their core business? Honda also scrambled to shift production of its hybrid Civic from Japan to the U.S. to dodge the tariff. But these moves are costly and complex, driven by tax avoidance rather than market logic. In 2024, 40% of Hondas sold in the U.S. were imported. Now, hundreds of thousands of cars faced massive new taxes. The seamless North American production era ended abruptly. The industry was forced into survival mode. The old way of doing business was over. For Nissan, the tariffs hit during its worst crisis in decades. Already struggling with scandals and slumping sales, Nissan was blindsided by the 25% tariff. The company halted U.S. orders for its Mexican-built SUVs. Selling them was no longer profitable. This left American dealerships with fewer cars and slashed Nissan's market presence. The company announced 20,000 job cuts and 7 plant closures worldwide, a desperate bid to survive. The tariffs weren't the only problem, but they poured gasoline on an already raging fire. Nissan's fight shifted from market share to basic survival. The tariffs, meant to help American industry, nearly finished off a global competitor. The collateral damage was massive. The real-world impact of tariffs quickly hit American consumers and workers. Car prices soared. Suddenly, that affordable Honda or Toyota cost thousands more. Many families were priced out of new cars, forced to buy used or keep aging vehicles. Domestic automakers raised prices too, fueling inflation across the sector. Tariffs acted as a tax on anyone needing a new car, shrinking purchasing power. U.S. factories, even those run by Japanese companies, paid more for imported parts, raising production costs and threatening American jobs. Dealerships had fewer cars to sell, meaning less work for sales staff and mechanics. Port workers and suppliers saw business dry up as trade slowed. The policy meant to protect American jobs ended up hurting them. The boomerang effect was undeniable. The tariffs didn't just disrupt business, they strained the U.S.-Japan alliance. For decades, the partnership was built on shared values and economic cooperation, with the auto industry at its core. The sudden tariffs felt like a betrayal in Tokyo. After years of investment and job creation in the U.S. Prime Minister Ishiba refused any new trade deal without full tariff removal, setting up a high-stakes diplomatic showdown. The dispute escalated from boardrooms to the highest levels of government. Trust eroded, replaced by suspicion and resentment. Economists warned the tariffs could tip Japan's entire economy into recession. The auto industry is Japan's engine. When it sputters, the whole country feels it. U.S. policy meant to solve a domestic problem exported instability to a key ally. The stakes had never been higher. Of July 2025, the future of North America's auto industry is uncertain. If tariffs stay, expect more investment cuts, fewer affordable cars, and higher prices for everyone. The best hope lies in upcoming U.S.-Japan negotiations. If a deal is struck, stability could return. For consumers, that means lower prices and more choices. This crisis is a lesson in how one policy can trigger global consequences. The story isn't just about cars, it's about the fragile web of our global economy. The road ahead is unclear, but your next car, and the job of the person who builds it, hangs in the balance. What happens next will shape the industry for years to come.